All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the August 2022 Boston Tableau User Group Meetup. I'm going to kick things off with just a few announcements, and then we have an awesome presentation from Jim and Tyler. And then, as always, please stick around afterwards for some virtual networking. So our first announcement, ChartChamp is back. So on September 22nd, Clear Intelligence is going to be hosting their 7th annual ChartChamp. If you're not familiar with ChartChamp, it's just a really, really cool event. It's a day full of amazing presentations and workshops, networking, great food, and of course the ultimate data viz competition for Boston area Tableau enthusiasts. And it's always at a really cool venue. So it's been at Gillette Stadium, Harpoon Brewery, and this year it's back for the second time at Fenway Park, which is pretty amazing. And we're very excited to announce that Clear Intelligence has invited the Boston Tug to join the event. So live at Fenway, our very own Jackie Moore will be presenting at ChartChamp, which is pretty cool. If you want to participate in the competition for a chance to win a $1,000 Amazon gift card and the honor of being crowned this year's ChartChamp, there's still plenty of time to get your submissions in. So the deadline, I believe, is September 1st. And we'll drop a link in the chat with all the information you need to register to compete, links to the data and all of that. And of course, if you don't want to compete but still want to attend the event, you can use that same link to register. And if I didn't mention it already, it's completely free, and we really hope to see you all there. And as always, we are putting out a call for speakers. So if you're interested in speaking at a future event, please reach out to myself, Jackie, Will, or John. And we're also putting out a call for live hosts. So, we're really excited to get together in person at ChartChamp this year. And we're hoping to organize some more in-person events in the near future. So if you're interested in hosting a Tug event, please let one of us know. All right, so that's it for announcements. On to the main event. So we're very excited to have Jim Dehner and Tyler Weldon share their talk about teaching Tableau. So this presentation was originally done to a sold-out crowd at the Tableau conference, and we're just thrilled to have them share it here with our community. So thank you both very much for being here, and I will hand things over to you.
Okay. Awesome. Let me throw the slides up here real quick. It's great to see everybody looking at the crowd right now, so super excited about that.
Tyler, while you're doing that, let me just thank the Boston Tug for having us.
Yep.
I've spoken here a couple of times before, and it's always fun to come back because you guys are really one of the best tugs in the U.S. and I really enjoy speaking.
Yeah, I'm super thankful for that. This is my first time, excuse me, joining the Boston Tug group, and I'm super excited to kind of just get to chat with everyone and go from there. We just had a question pop in. Will the slides shown be shared? Yeah, we can share out the slides. I don't have a problem with that.
I think this is being recorded, is it not?
Yeah, and it'll be recorded as well. I think. Did we get that set up, guys? The recording? I think we did. Yeah, so we'll double check on that it's being recorded as well. And then, so we'll have it. And then me and Jim have some stuff in the works to share some more of this at a later date, some more content around this teaching Tableau. So be on the lookout for that as well. Well, first of all, as we jump into this, I do want to call attention to a forward-looking statement. So myself being an employee of Salesforce, I do just want to highlight that please don't take any of the information that you learned here today and use it for any financial investments or growth because I promise you it will not help you. So please don't take my advice and use it. Nothing said here can be used for anything financial, and nor would it ever help you in that situation. So, but I do want to call attention to that forward-looking statement. So here we are again, like they said, Jim and I are kind of getting to, thankfully, to the Boston Tug Group. We're going to kind of reprise our teaching Tableau presentation that we did at the TC 2022 this year. And so super excited about that. I'll let Jim jump in, introduce himself, and then I'll go from there.
Okay. I think I know many of you. I've certainly been around for quite a while. My name is Jim Dehner. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, or just outside of Nashville. I'm a two-time visionary, and I'm a five-time Tableau Forum ambassador, and that's maybe where we've met before. But I also co-lead two user groups. First, the Nashville user group, and then for any of you who have attended the newbie user group, thank you very much. But Klaus Schulte and I co-founded that group, and we co-lead that group. It's kind of important, and I mention this every time I speak, that I'm an engineer by training. I am not a data scientist, and I am not a professional IT person. So I bring a little different perspective to Tableau. I also have a degree in business. When I'm not doing Tableau, I'm either with this group on the lower right. That's my family that lives here in Nashville, my three grandchildren that live here in Nashville. Or once in a while, I get out to Seattle to see my son and his wife and the baby in Seattle. And she's 2, and yes, she has grandpa wrapped around her little finger. And then if I'm not doing that, you'll probably see me on a bike someplace. I am a triathlete. I do have 3 Ironman finishes, but I'm pretty much solely riding at this point in time. Tyler, why don't you introduce your family?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, and so Jim and I actually got to meet first time about 6 months ago at the TC conference, and I can tell you guys, Jim is truly amazing and really lives and breathes the Tableau community and what it means to be, just giving back everything that he can. And so I've already learned a ton as well. And so I'm super thankful for that. So a little bit about me. I come from higher education. So I spent 10 years in higher education in Alabama. So I'm talking to you guys from Birmingham, Alabama. That's where I'm stationed. Got all my degrees from Auburn University. And so I come from science background. That's where I came from hard science, doing research and that. And then after school, went into adult education. And so I got a PhD at Auburn in adult education. And that's where I've kind of spent the last 10 years in some form of adult education, ranging from teaching in-person classes to developing educational applications on iPhones, Androids, and then moving into e-learning and Tableau. And so when I'm not at work, spending time with my family. So you can see that's our family right there. If you notice, it's quiet in my house today because we dropped our son off today, first day here. And so a little bit different in the house. Been with us for 2 years at the house, so it's a little bit different. But I love running, spending time with family, fly fishing. That's my passion. I live on a river here in Birmingham, and so fly fishing is kind of what I do to get out. That and disc golf. Just got into disc golf, which is pretty contagious as well. And then my favorite thing right now, I'm obsessed with building Tableau maps. So if you ever get me to work on a dashboard for you, I promise you that a Tableau map will show up because it is my favorite thing to do. So Jim, why don't you, let's jump in and let's talk about what have you seen so far in the last 2 years, with teaching and training in the workplace? What are your thoughts?
Well, no great surprise. I mean, the world changed 2.5 years ago. And I don't know, I'm sure out there among the members today, some are still working from home and some are back in the office. But 2 years ago, the workplace changed. And the impact it had on all of our lives is something that got into our personal time and put a great strain on our personal time. But it also affected the way people are trained in the education process. Tyler, if we could go to that next slide. Okay. The traditional model, the idea of an instructor standing in front of a group of people and a classroom full of people, that may still be around, but for the most part, that has evolved to meet a new virtual norm. And if we take a look at the next slide, Tyler. Most often training now is done in virtual classrooms, or it's done in meetings like this where we can speak to 100 people at a time. Sometimes smaller groups of people. And even at university levels, there's some personal online training, and all of that's become the norm. We're working now in a virtual world, and we're working at points in time when we're meeting the user's need on their timetable. Tyler, that really hasn't changed the way adults learn, has it?
No, that's a good point. So, even though I would think that training delivery and modality has changed, right? How adult learners learn has never, that's still the same. Right? And so if we think about teaching Tableau, I think we first need to think about our learners, right? And what do we know about adult learners specifically? And when we say adult learners, we typically are referring to that post K-12 learner, right? And that's kind of where we say adult is like post K-12. They have a more domain knowledge around the world and just just different contexts that kind of allow us to teach in a different method than, let's say, our K-12, which typically doesn't have as much domain knowledge in maybe these areas. And so when we think about adult learners, we know they're self-directed, right? They're coming to this learning because they have a plan. And they're going to bring a large volume of experiences. They're going to bring past experiences that allow us, kind of like a blank slate to kind of pick and choose and connect to. And we'll talk about what that means in just a little bit. They have a readiness to learn, and they have an experience they need to know. So that's always tell people, when I kind of frame up what is adult learning, I always be kind of blunt and I say, they're at A and they need to get to C, and B's in the middle and you're B. So they have a readiness. They need to learn B so they can get to C. All right. And so, that's where they are. They're coming with a readiness to learn because they have to, in most cases, they're trying to get somewhere, and this learning is going to help them get there. They're going to bring a task-centered approach, right? They're going to bring an approach where they want to do hands-on learning. They want to do a task versus more of a just lecture style presentation. And they're internally motivated, right? And that motivation may be just because they want to learn something. It may be because they want to get a new job. It could be financial reasons, but in most cases, they are internally motivated. So taking what we know about the adult learner, let's kind of keep going and say who are our actual Tableau learners, right? So as we go a bit further, we can take that. And I think me and Jim talked about this, and we kind of can break it down into kind of three groups where, you have those technical focused users. These are going to be your system admins, your database admins, could be managing multiple softwares, and maybe not always are using Tableau, right? But they're using a similar BI, or they have skills in, advanced analytics. They understand the concepts. And then there's our actual Tableau users. And so these people are in Tableau every single day. They're the subject matter experts when it comes to Tableau. They may be leading a team, or, they may be the Tableau person at their division, and people lean on them to help them, get to different places. But what we know about these users is they come in a wide range of experience. Now, because when we say they could be using Tableau, that could be a Tableau beginner. It could be a Tableau intermediate. They could be someone that's been using Tableau since, Tableau 6. And so it can be a wide range of experiences. So Jim, knowing what we know about adult learners and knowing kind of how we frame that into Tableau learners, why don't you tell us about the three types of Tableau learners that you kind of have identified?
Okay. Okay, there we go. I like to think about our users in three different groups. First of all, the newbie group, the intermediate group, and the advanced group. Now, we can think of a Tableau newbie as somebody that's just come to Tableau and they're just beginning to learn Tableau. But we've got to keep in mind they're adults and they're very well-educated people. A lot of them are subject matter experts. They come and they bring that expertise and that background with them when they're learning Tableau. Now, they come to Tableau and they're learning Tableau for some job-related reason. Either they've just gotten a promotion, or they're starting a new job, or maybe they're thinking of changing jobs and they want to learn Tableau as part of that opportunity to advance their career. With this group of people, we always talk about fundamentals. We talk about building a foundation that they can build on to get to the next level in Tableau. Now, the intermediate user, there we go. It takes a little while to get the slides up here. The intermediate user is the next level up. There's somebody that's already using Tableau, and they've reached a point where they want to elevate their Tableau skills. Either they're going to add a new functionality or a new area of expertise, and they want to build upon that foundation that they've already established. Now, this group of people, we talk about doing topic-based how-to instruction, very specific instructions on how to use a new function or a new feature or where you would use it in a use case. Now, there's one other type of user that we talk about, and that's the advanced user. The advanced user is very experienced in Tableau, and they've got a broad background in Tableau. They know what they're doing, and they know how to use most of the functions within Tableau. But they may have run into a business question that they haven't been able to answer using Tableau. There's no one single function that that they can use and employ and all of a sudden get an answer to their business problem. And they're faced with one of these how-to questions. They say, well, I don't know how to make Tableau do this thing. And for that type of user, we use a very specific use case example to show them both how Tableau would approach the problem and what they need to do to make Tableau solve their problem. Now, those are the three types of users. Why don't we talk about how they actually learn?
Yeah, Jen, that's great. I think that's a really good way to frame up who our users are. And so thinking about now, we know about adult, we've got some adult learning concepts under our belt. We kind of know who our Tableau learners are. Let's talk about the science. What does the science of learning tell us? And what are some tips that we could do to be successful? Well, I like to start off and I like to say, avoid the extraneous overload. It's always something that you especially see it in PowerPoints where you've got a PowerPoint and it's just text, tons and tons and tons of text, right? And I can tell you right now that is, while it's easy to get all the information out, it's not beneficial for the learner because they're going to see that text and they're going to look at it and it's boom, outside their brain. They call it cognitive overload. You get to a certain point where your brain can't process anything else and you lose it all. And so you really have to think about avoiding that overload and just focusing on a few single principles, right? So if we're talking about Tableau visual cues, right? You're not gonna want to put up this whole slide deck of all the different cues and all the different definitions. While that's helpful, it's hard to process everything. So what you're really going to want to do is, just do the icons and just a simple little text beside each one. It's going to say, the ABC is going to be text, right? And just kind of break it down from there. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to set up what they call central processing. So as I'm looking at this slide, so you guys are watching the slides right now, and you're looking at the text and you're looking at what Jim's going to talk about next, your brain is taking that stuff off the piece of paper or off the screen and stacking it inside your brain. And what it's doing is it's stacking it, and then eventually it's going to connect it to long-term memory. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to give you information, let you store it in your brain, and then connect it to something you already know. And that then becomes a further learning point. And that's what we talk about in that last step where we say the generative process. What we're trying to do is get stuff and connect it to what you already know that fits into your environment. So as you're thinking about that and we go back to that visual cue, people very well may not have ever heard of a string, but they may know text, right? And so it's like, oh, this is just text. And Jim's actually going to bring this up. Actually, it's probably a good point, Jim, to kind of jump into you about, thinking about what we just talked about here and how do we get into that generative process? Like, what are the things that we do, that you do, that kind of ties it into what they already know?
Okay, very good. Thanks, Tyler. Okay, we're going to go back to those three groups. I'm going to start with the newbies again. And for our new users, in all honesty, what you'd really like to have is you'd like to have that classroom setting. You'd like to be able to be in a one-to-many classroom setting, but you'd actually like to be in an in-person, face-to-face room. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen too much anymore. So we use the next best thing. We use a virtual classroom, or we use a setting like this in a user group. Klaus and I in the newbies group, we have a session each time where we talk about how does that work, where we're speaking specifically to a relatively large group of users, but essentially it's focused against new users. Or we can do a series, or have an entire series devoted to aimed at the new user and developing the foundation that they need to build upon Tableau. But the real important part in this is that in each one of those sessions, we only talk about a single concept. We have a single concept devoted to the order of operations, for example. So we have one session devoted to one topic. Tyler, let's go to the next slide. Okay. And then within that session, we start by building upon common knowledge. One of the things we did with our first newbie group session, we were talking about connections. And we took our user right back to an Excel spreadsheet. We told them, well, think about an Excel spreadsheet. And when you're doing a join in Tableau, that's just like using a VLOOKUP. And when you're using a union in Tableau, well, that's like using an append statement. And then once we had a common base to work from, we could introduce concepts like blending data or using relationships. The other thing that we want to do, particularly with newbies, is we want to keep it simple. I do a session where I talk about the order of operations. Well, that's 10 steps. That's pretty complex. Well, I break it down into three different groups. One group that's workbook based, that's used to improve the overall performance of the workbook. And then the next 3 steps are well, everything else is at the worksheet level, but the next 3 steps are used to create the structure for the data table on each one of the worksheets. And the last 5 steps are there where we actually load data into the worksheet, and then we start doing calculations with that data and we create the biz. But we're talking about 3 items and not 10 items, and we try to keep it simple that way. Well, with the intermediate user, we can get a little bit more advanced, but we're talking about a very specific topic. It's how-to type training. They've come to the session looking for how to add functionality or how to use a new function that they may not have known before. And we start in that session by explaining what the function is and what it does. What is the function and what do you expect to get out of it? Then we go on to the more technical side and start explaining what the calculations are. We go through the syntax, for example, explaining what each one of the variables in the syntax is. Then finally, we're going to come back and we're going to do some use case examples based on that function. Okay, some use case examples, but we always start with the simplest example. Show them the most simple, the most basic thing you can do with that function, and then build in stepwise upon that very simple example incrementally, so that they can see not only how to use the function, but where it would be used. Now, there's one very important thing to remember, that people don't remember what you say. They remember images, they remember links, but they don't remember so much about what you say. So we always try to leave them with some sort of memorable image, something that they can take away, that they can say, oh yeah, when we were talking about table calculations, they made a big deal about scope and direction. And they can remember the link and how to get back to that information rather easily that way. Now, our advanced user is a business user that has a very specific use case. And as we said before, he's tried everything he can, but he just can't get Tableau to give him the answer to his business case. And the first thing we do with them is we acknowledge what their use case is, but also illustrate to them what they have tried and why it doesn't work. We show them what the problem is and say, well, this is what you're trying to do, and this is why it doesn't work. And then we'll take them to the next step and we'll develop the solution and show them what will work. And then, Tyler, if we can go to this last slide here. Then once we've shown them how it works in their case, I'm sure everybody believes that their case is unique and they're the only one that have this problem. But most often the solution for their case is used elsewhere also on other business cases. And we try to build around that so that they can see that how their problem relates to other problems that they may encounter in the future. Now, there's one other thing you got to be prepared to do. Very often we'll get a user that will come in and they'll start asking questions, and it's pretty clear that the question they're asking and the solution to that question is beyond their current skill level. And you run into this thing, I run into this on the forum quite frequently, to be honest with you. And, you know, an example might be they want to draw a normal distribution curve. There are a few scientists out there that really need to draw a normal distribution curve, but for most users, there's something else that might work also. So while I'm prepared to show them how to do a normal distribution curve, I'm also prepared to show them how maybe a histogram can meet their specific needs and get them on their way and stay within their comfort zone. Tyler, back to you.
Yeah, these are great tips, Jim. I think that was really good. Kind of a good transition as we talked about that. Like I said, that generative process, it's kind of like, how do we actually apply that, right? How do we previously know and connect to it, right? And create these further learning points in someone's brain. And so at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is to help the learner, right? I read this in a textbook I have on my desk. I'm looking at it right now. And it defines learning, and learning is a change in behavior, right? At the end of the day, it's a change in behavior. And as teachers or trainers or anyone that's helping somebody else, you get to provide an experience that helps with that behavior change. And that's our ultimate goal is to provide a great experience and help that learner. And so how do we do that? Again, we simplify that learning. We chunk the material. As Jim said, we know that users love auditorial and visual representation when they're learning, right? We know that if it's all text, they're not going to learn as much as if they can see images and connect, because we know that so learners learn through their eyes and their ears very well. And so we can provide them different options. That's super helpful. And to chunk that up, we know that we've got 1,000 distractions around us, and that we, as adult learners, we learn better in smaller increments. So keep things, 30 minutes total, but then if you could even break it down and do 3 to 5 little minute vignettes, that's even better. Scaffold within your workshops, give them breaks, do a little bit, provide hands-on practice, do a little bit more, provide hands-on practice, build on everything, and don't just jump in and just go from start to finish. Break that up. Help their brain connect to the previous content. Again, ask your questions at the beginning, find out what that prior knowledge is, and then build on that. Because that's, again, our whole ultimate goal. We have a very short time to get in there, get some good content, and get out. And build that muscle memory. So I think at the end of the day, what I always like to tell people is, what does success mean, right? If we did this learning and we did this, this training exercise, or we taught a group of people Tableau, what's our ultimate end goal? Well, it's not that immediately after the training, they can recall the information. They need to be able to recall the information 6 months, 12 months down the road when someone comes to them and says, hey, I need to do this. And they can say, oh, yeah, we can do this in Tableau, or I think it's this. Let me go look it up. Because, again, we don't need them to recall everything to the T, but we do need to need for them to have the domain knowledge to be like, okay, I know what that is. Let me just go refresh a little bit on the help site, but this is probably the direction we need to go. And so, Jim, knowing now kind of what all we've talked about and how we can, the process of adult learning and how we help the learner, kind of wrap it up for us and tell us how you kind of do that with those 3 groups.
Okay, Tyler. There we go. Okay. Simplify the process. Absolutely. Tyler's talked about it. I've talked about it. 25 or 30 minutes in a virtual world is about as long as you can expect your viewer or the person in the course. That's about as long as the attention span that they have. And quite honestly, after 25 or 30 minutes, you're running out of energy also. The second thing that I do, and we talk about layering the message across multiple platforms, and we do that for a couple of reasons. Everything I do now, anything I write now, I write for my blog and it goes on the blog, but I also do a YouTube recording, and I do that in conjunction with Sagar and BizConnect out in India. And we record all those sessions on BizConnect, and they're all available so the user can go out if that's their mode of learning, that visual mode of learning. It's all out there visually on YouTube, and then all the workbooks that I have in conjunction with what's written on the blog are out on my Tableau public site, so they can download those at their leisure. Tyler? We talked before also about starting from a common base, and the analogy there was particularly for new users and newbies is starting from something that they know and they understand. The analogy there was most new users come from an Excel background or from a spreadsheet background in any event. And that's a good place to start because that's their comfort zone, and then we can take them out of their comfort zone. Sometimes you're going to talk about a concept, and this is certainly true with LOD expressions and fixed LOD expressions. That's really, there's no real analogy to what they've been doing. So I try to take them back to something like a shape or a language that they are familiar with. When I talk about LOD expressions, I tell them to think about their data structure as a pyramid. And the data that they've entered into Tableau forms the base of that pyramid. And then fixed LODs allow them to create layers within that pyramid and at higher levels in that pyramid that they can use anywhere. We also talk about, conceptual images like with table calculations going across and down in terms of direction or the scope of the calculation. Tyler? And then be consistent. If you've introduced an image that you want your user to remember, and we talked before about the order of operation, how I'll break that down into 3 segments. Well, the order of operation comes up in a lot of other lessons and a lot of other content that are put together. Always go back to that same image. If I've introduced the concept of the order of operation in 3 parts, and then when I talk about the 6 types of filters in Tableau, we show where in those 3 parts those filters are applied and how they affect the other steps in the order of operation. Whether it's filtering or whether we're talking about creating sets and using sets, and when context filters are used and when dimension filters are used. Always go back to that same image to reinforce that image over and over again. Tyler, we got one more slide, I think. And then finally, be available. Users, and particularly in a virtual world, they come to you on their schedule and not necessarily on a planned schedule that maybe I've set up previously. What we're doing today, this presentation is being recorded, so that anybody who wasn't able to attend today can see it later, when they're available. Everything I do is either on my blog or, as I mentioned before, out on YouTube or on my Tableau public site. But also, people reach out to us out on the forum and post questions when they have a question, when they have a need. Not necessarily when I might be available or anybody else might be available. Well, in this virtual world, we've got to fit into their schedule, and that means being available on a lot of different platforms and at times around the world when they want to reach out to you. Tyler, back to you.
Yeah, Jim, that's great. I think that's some really good points, especially on how we kind of, again, wrap up how we help the learner. And I think for me, the last thing I kind of want to wrap up is, again, with Jim, kind of just echoing everything that Jim had to say. And, for for kind of on the Tableau side is one, just, if you need some help, join the community. If you're not already a member, active member on the forum, check it out. There's great information on there. I promise you, if you post a question, Jim's probably going to see it, and he may be even the one that responds back to you because he's pretty fast on it. But also too, as you're going through kind of figuring out your trainings, what you guys want to, if you're in a situation where you're helping other people, we have great information on the Tableau website, especially help.tableau.com. But then also too, we have a new mission. If you didn't attend the TC conference or didn't join in live, Tableau set a mission that we're going to, in the next 5 years, we're going to train 10 million people on data skills. And so I want to highlight that as well. And we have a new trailhead right there that you can go through. It talks about what is data literacy for all. And we also have free Tableau e-learning as well in 6 different languages. And so the reason I want to highlight this is just kind of, as you're going through and you're trying to plan out what you're going to do, or you want to help other, just kind of spread the word. This is a great way to start. Because I think even with Tableau, understanding data skills and understanding kind of like a data foundation also super helps, because again, it lets us build on that prior knowledge. If they can come in with the kind of knowledge of understanding quantitative and qualitative variables and strings and booleans, that does help a little bit as you guys are kind of planning out what you're doing. And so that's kind of one thing I just wanted to highlight there at the end. And then really thank you. Do you have any questions for Jim or myself? If I can,
Tyler, I'd like to reinforce one thing, and I'm just because I've seen it in the last couple of weeks, maybe half a dozen times on questions on the forum, is where people are looking for training. They don't know where to go. The e-learning platform and the e-learning program is an excellent program.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. I've worked with some of those people, and I went out maybe 2 years ago, or longer than that now, three years ago, but I'd already been an ambassador for a couple of years, and I went through the e-learning analytics 1, 2, and 3, and I kept saying to myself, well, I didn't know it did that. So, I mean, it's an excellent place to learn Tableau, and if you're at any state, by all means, consider using it. And quite honestly, they've got a subscription that you can get a subscription for $10 a month. It's very affordable.
Yep.
So very good.
Yep, I totally agree. I think that, and it even has, I think, over 10 different free e-learning as well. You can go to the website and you can get started with some free e-learning to kind of see the status and see its process. So yeah, I think that's a great place to start, and it's kind of building that foundation. And again, like Jim said, you start going through that and you kind of realize like, okay, these were spots that I was missing, but I've built up some domain knowledge, and now I'm kind of piecing together stuff that, your second time through that you maybe had not had before. But yeah, I think that's a great place to start when it comes to that. But again, any other questions? If you have any, let us know. I'll go ahead and close my slideshow here, but I'm keeping an eye on the chat. And again, thank you to everyone that's joined and stayed on the call and listened. Anytime that I can talk about teaching, I'm super pumped, but anytime I can talk about teaching and data and speak with Jim, it's even better. So
I think you have to stop sharing your screen now.
yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, we're pretty good with Tableau. Remo, not so much.
I'm learning.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you being here. Doesn't look like we have any questions in the Q&A, but if you do come up with anything, feel free to reach out to these guys. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer them. So that's about it for today. If you can, please stick around for some networking. But if you can't, we hope to see you all next month at Fenway for Chart Champ. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jim, Tyler.
Thank you.